Hello, let me introduce myself first. I'm Simon Wallace. I'm one of the committee members of the Consultancy Specialist Group here at BCS. Today with me, I have the chair of the Consultancy Specialist Group, Antonio. Do you want to just say hi, Antonio?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this event. Thank you.
And also from the committee, I see we have Alan Moore, who is our past chair. You will probably remember from previous events if you've been with us. Alan, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah. And tonight's speaker is Zarina Naqvi. And Zarina, if you want to just say hi, then you'll pop up on their screens.
Hello.
Zarina is a management consultant specializing in leveraging mature organizations in the private section where there is a technology dependence. She brings commercialization to public sector and not-for-profit entities. She's the director of Maxima Associates, which she founded in 2012, and she's also a non-executive director. She is a chartered management consultant, and she's also an assessor for that scheme, and that's something we'll be talking about this evening. And she's served on the London Committee of the Institute of Consulting and sits on the Institute's Advisory Council. She's also the Institute's Consulting Champion on the London Regional Board of the Chartered Management Institute. So looking forward to a really interesting session about the consulting journey and in particular the new chartered status.
So look, thank you very much for asking me to do this. In particular, of course, Antonio, Simon and Alan. I appreciate it, and for that more than generous introduction. I think I was blushing. I hadn't realised I was so deeply involved in CMI. They ought to start acknowledging that, I think. But there is a reason, there's a very good reason why I'm so embedded with IC, the Institute of Consulting, which sits below CMI. And that is because I firmly believe in consulting as a profession. And until very recently, it really wasn't professionalised. And so we are now, as a result, in my view, of having developed the Chartered Management Consultant Award, which internationally, anything that's British and chartered, as you know in your own sector, it's really at the top of any tree. And so I think there is now a journey. I mean, until now, there was an ability to work for PwC or Ernst & Young and Accenture and go through their programs, which was great, but it's not terribly portable. And if you don't work for PwC, and they are all the same, and they are very, very particular over how they recruit, it left the rest of us, and I say us, in a bit of a sort of free-for-all. And something I particularly, and I've said this before, probably at a presentation to BCS, how uncomfortable it always made me feel that I'd be in the same room as other people calling themselves consultants, and they really weren't, and they were charging crazy day rates. So the consultant's journey, as far as I'm concerned, is something now that we can say there is a journey. How do we develop our careers in consulting? I'm not moving. Okay, I am moving now. So there I am again. I'm a mentor and assessor for the Charter. I'm also one of 4 people or 5 people in the UK who can train for the ISO 2700, which I want to talk about as well, because the Charter and the ISO 2700 are quite different, but the ISO is very achievable. And for people who are consultants starting out or mature consultants who don't necessarily want to go beyond that sort of accreditation, it's a day. And it has lots of benefits. So I wanted to bring that in. And my business background is very much about optimizing other people's businesses, whether it's the commercial private sector or it's the public sector. I will take the commercialization into the public sector and good governance into the entrepreneurial world. There is a very easy crossover for me to do, and that's because I've got an unusual CV. And I think it's relevant for you to know that, because it kind of contextualizes what I say. At the bottom of this slide is consultants know-how, which some of you who have known me a while will know I've been trying to get this off the ground for a long time. And probably a year before lockdown, I presented along with Simon White, an associate of mine who does sales training. And at that point, I just launched it because, and we were in Moorfields where your new offices were. And some of you joined this Consultants Know-How LinkedIn group because at that point, and I've picked it up again now, what I wanted to do was bring multi-sector, cross-sector consultants together so that we could learn from each other, not compete with each other's association, but learn from each other and even better, work together as associates. Many times I'm in a position, in fact, I've got clients at the moment who are IT consultants, and they struggle to hire the right kind of consultants with the appropriate background. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm connected to you guys at BCS. I know there's a synergy here. And then I'm also connected with the Institute of Chartered Accountants. And again, I see clients who say, you know, my chartered accountant is useless. And I've experienced that myself when I had my own business. It was terrible. So I know good chartered accountants. I know good IT specialists. And the same goes for other sectors. So what I'm trying to do is bring you all together so that when I am asked a question, do you know X? Because I am cross-sector. My clients are in construction, they're in charities, they're all over. And that's not just me. There are lots of people like me. I can recommend somebody I know. So it's a sort of happy thing where you can recommend me, I can recommend you, we share knowledge, we collaborate. So Consultants Know-How is, and of course, what are we? If you're a consultant, what are you? You're selling know-how. That is precisely what you're doing. And it's something that AI is going to struggle with. I don't think, and please tell me I'm wrong, or stick something in the chat and tell me, oh, no, AI can totally replace consultants. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's why I called it Consultants Know-How, because it is know-how. And now I've only just bought the URL. Can you believe that? I've only just had the time to do it, despite lockdown, because I was extremely busy. I was very fortunate. My business went crazy during lockdown. And so now it's up and running again. I'm doing this alongside some other members of the IC committee. So it's very much IC committee and other independent consultants coming together. So I would like you to connect with me because I'd like to be able to recommend you. So here's a favorite question of mine. What do we mean by consultant? And at this point, I would really appreciate it if you put into the chat box what you think or what you mean by consultant. And I'm going to pause while you do that because I'd like to read it and see what you say. And I don't want to trip you up. This is not a trip you up kind of question. This is pure interest on my part.
Well, we've got Antonio's suggestion there of trusted advisor.
Antonio, go for it.
Sheila says someone with specialist knowledge in their field. James Cooper says a professional who brings specialist knowledge to help solve a client's problem.
Yep.
Any more? Well, they're not bad.
No, that's great.
There's one more. Expert external knowledge to help a business achieve its aims. And that's from Carl. And Nick says someone who provides a specialist service. So good selection.
That's brilliant. And that's pretty much how I describe a consultant. However, a lot of people who are looking for work call themselves consultants. A lot of interim managers who are actually doing the job of a permanent person call themselves a consultant. But I completely agree. We are specialists who go in with specialist knowledge and diagnose and inform and then execute. So fantastic. We're all on the same page. So presently, going back to the previous slides, I was talking about how the journey. And really at the moment, as far as pure management consulting is concerned, not accounting or IT, pure management consulting, the only things that really are commercially useful, in my view, is the ISO 27700. There is a certified management consultant award, and then there's the chartered management consultant. And in the pecking order, the charter is probably the most important. I'm sorry about that diagram. I did it. It's not great. The ISO, though, is, as I said before, an international standard. It's portable. An ISO is accepted all over the world. The certified management consultant is also accepted all over the world. That too is international. But now we have the chartered management consultant award. That kind of trumps everything else. But it is an award. It's not a qualification. The ISO is an accreditation, but the certified management consultant is a qualification. Why does it matter? What is the differentiator? It matters because in some countries, and I think China's one, Austria's certainly one, to practice there, you must have a qualification. You must be qualified to do whatever it is you say you do. So it does become relevant. But the chartered management consultant, yeah, it's a more complex award. Of course, it's a charter, carries a lot of weight. And I've seen it myself. I should give you some personal history here. I was one of the first, I think I was number 5 out of the first batch of 8 to receive the award. And I can see the difference straight away in how people differentiate me, despite my CV. My CV is, if I say so myself, it is really good. It's very strong, full of global brands, full of change. It's financial. Every industry I was in was cutting edge at its time. But the quick route to giving a person confidence is, I'm chartered. So why bother? Why bother to do this? So this is Buddha. This is the outline of Buddha. And that's the wisdom. That's you. You're the wise person. You're the wise person with the know-how that people are buying. And what do you want to achieve? You want, your personal goals are more business. You don't want stressful relationships with clients. You want to differentiate yourself. These are the highlights. I mean, there are many reasons, many things that you want when you're running your business. But I would say at the top of it is you want credibility. The client has different needs. They want quality assurance. They want to know that you've listened to them. They don't want the stress. They want the thing delivered on time. Delivery is the next stage, and the reason I've got a surfboard there, which is what that is. It's because you want the project. Everybody wants the project to go ahead fast, smooth, on time. You don't want conflict. Nobody wants conflict. You want the project properly managed. And finally, the project, what do we want? We want the invoice paid. We don't want fighting over, you said you'd do this, you didn't do this. Oh, this overrun, it's out of scope. You want to give the client what they asked for. You want to invoice everything. And even better, retain that client. Get that client to bring you back. And again, speaking personally, I had clients in 2014 who I helped with. They were a sort of breakaway from a bigger firm, and they set up this firm of consultants. And I helped them in 2014 with their strategy. And end of last year, they contacted me again and brought me back to do a much, much bigger piece of work. I mean, it's a huge piece of work. It's taking them international. Why have they done that? Because the first project, I delivered on time. I showed good knowledge. I know I gave them more than they asked for. I know that, but because it's kind of difficult with strategy to know where to stop. And so they're bringing me back with a job that will probably take me through for the next couple of years, not working on them full time, because I don't do that. I don't work on one client permanently. I have a portfolio of clients for many reasons, one of which is risk. and I'm not an interim manager. I am a management consultant, so I have a portfolio. I work on different businesses at the same time, and this one's going to run and run. So for me, that's probably the most flattering thing anybody can do for me professionally is to bring me back. Apart from recommend me, but bring me back. I think that's a very important one. So the ISO 2700 is totally about contracting, execution, closure. That's the ISO 2700. It's one day. That's all it is. When you think about projects that fail, invariably, it's those three areas that cause the failure. You haven't actually. Would you like to tell me what you think? Give me examples of failure, something that's happened to any one of you or you've seen happen that causes a problem at the end so that closure becomes really uncomfortable. Could you put that in chat for me?
That sounds like a slightly embarrassing question. I expect it'll take them a minute or two to type a good answer to that.
It could be something somebody else has done, not necessarily them.
Yes, my biggest failure was.
Shall I keep going? I'll just go ahead.
There are some answers coming in. There's subcontracting to another consultant was an example here. Conflicts with regulation changes. Having fixed end dates. So that's from Nick. Those are the first three I've seen. I'm not sure how many people are going to be brave enough to answer your question now.
These are great examples. Again, these are terrific examples. So indeed, and a lot of that comes from the very beginning of it. That's the scoping, that's the contracting piece, not asking the right questions. Whose subcontractors are they? What are the terms of the subcontractor? Have you got a contract in place with them, or are they your client's subcontractors? That very first piece is probably the most dangerous. Following on from that, there are timelines, touch points, when the scope creep, how do you bring that back? And the only way to do that is to have it all agreed up front. And that is painful because all you want to do is say, got the business, sign on the dotted line, when do we start? But actually, that's not wise. It's best to put the investment in at the front. And the ISO 2700 has, when I first saw it, I thought, this is horrendous. It looked like a massive checklist. But actually, it wraps up terms and conditions, it wraps up scoping in quite an intelligent way, which you get as part of doing the ISO. You're given this, you're given a sort of toolbox, and you're also given a quality assurance logo that goes out with to your client. So your client knows that you've been accredited with this ISO to say that you are properly armed with not only scoping, but delivering and doing the closure piece. Right at the end of this document, there's a piece where you all sign off. This is what we agreed. Did you get it? Do it. So it's signed off. There is no risk of going to court. It's all there. Everybody's agreed it. And for me, when I first saw that, I thought, for the majority of consultants, whatever angle of consulting they're involved in, this is actually a very useful thing to have. And so I know that Nick Warren from ICMCI has talked to you before about this. I've certainly talked to you about it before, but I think that was just at the beginning of lockdown. It was just before lockdown, I think November 2019, when it was very difficult to do this kind of thing. We really weren't that adept at holding courses and breakout rooms and online. So it didn't happen really during the last couple of years. But now things are coming back online. I think this is something that we can all consider and add to our own toolbox. So the ISO 2700 is managed on behalf of ICMCI and all these acronyms. ICMCI is the International Council of Management Consultants. So that's the international body, and below them in every country there is a local management consulting institute, and in England that local one is CMI, the Chartered Management Institute. So they manage this particular accreditation. So everything has to go through them. So it is, you know, it is substantial. It isn't some sort of, because you can actually learn about the 2700. You just buy it and read it. It's horrendous, but you don't get the additional piece, which is the case study analysis with your peers who are doing the course. And in Austria, the ICMCI head office, there's an online registration. It's not it's a register of everybody who's been through this. So your clients could actually go and look and see that you're there, you're registered there. So it has a bit more about it if you do it this way. The other interesting aspect of this, and I'm talking to the Institute of Purchasing about this aspect, is if you look at this slide, this is how you can do it. So at the beginning, the very first column, embedded in CMC training. Well, we've talked about the certified management consulting training. So that doesn't really apply to BCS, because BCS won't be doing CMC. I think that's very unlikely. Or for consultants who are already CMCs, again, that really isn't you. This is for people like IC. For everybody else, which is you, it's typically 1 day. It includes consultancy basics. So if you have only just launched your career and you want to understand more about being a management consultant, the first half of the day is about that. The second half of the day is the ISO 2700 and the checklist and some case studies, which I talked about. So that's for consultants. But here's the interesting piece, which kind of blew my socks off when I saw this. Buyers of management consulting services often don't know how to hire a consultant. They ask all the wrong questions, focus on the wrong thing. So training them is as important. And if you think about the government, just the government, the Cabinet Office, for example, if they all did this, we would all be on the same page, because they'd be asking from you what you would expect as a management consultant. So you wouldn't have all this, you know, fragmented breaking down. We wouldn't be asked stupid questions like, what's your hourly rate? I mean, who asks a proper management consultant what their hourly rate is when it's going to be a big project? These are not the most important questions to ask. And this doesn't cover hourly rates, although hourly rates is another interesting conversation, which I'd happily have with you some other time. But, you know, that is open to all sorts of interpretation. And one of the reasons why I mentioned early on that you can be with somebody calling themselves a consultant, and they say, oh, I'm charging £300 a day or £400 a day. And you're thinking, well, you're not going to get very far on that, because if you're not working every single day of the year, you're in big trouble. So you haven't really understood how to cost it. But I digress. So teaching clients about this is actually a very powerful tool. And it's something, as I said, I'm talking to the Institute of Purchasing about, and they're very, very excited about it, if you can be excited about this kind of thing. But you know what purchasers are like, they get excited about the strangest things. So for you guys, you're everybody else. It would be 1 day. And you know, one of the best things about this is the case study. I don't know anything about who's watching this, but if you've done a master's or an MBA, case study learning is, for me, far more powerful than sitting and looking at a whiteboard while somebody goes blah, 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 or like what I'm doing right now, I'm pointing at things and telling you. Pointing and telling, I think, is fine to a certain point. But when you're experienced business people, case study learning, I think, is the real big winner. And I'm going to be doing more of that with my clients. I think they've started to wake up. I think this sort of format has alerted people to different ways of doing things. And when I talk about case study learning, they get it. they can see that that's a much more intelligent way to learn anything. So the case study piece of this, I think, has got great value. So why do it? Why do this? It's a quick way for experienced management consultants, as well as experienced consultants, to align themselves with an international standard. And it's a differentiator. It's something that certainly inexperienced or new management consultants won't have, which when you present to the client and they have to differentiate, having an ISO behind you as well as your own charter, it will clearly differentiate, because this focuses on something different to IT. Because it covers consulting best practice, commercial practice, and it will give professional confidence. How many times have we heard consultants are a waste of money? They just steal your watch and then tell you the time or something like that. We have a really bad reputation. And somebody said to me not long ago, this is before the charter. He said to me, well, I could get another consultant for £300 a day. And I said, well, choose them. Don't ask me, because there was no clear differentiator. And so now this ISO charter, it's a great help. So here's the Chartered Management Consultant Award, which I think sits very happily beside any other charter, because it's working on something other than accounting, IT, surveying, architecture. It's focusing on delivery, scoping, the framework around the project, the framework around the technical skill that you have. So now, in my view, the two go like this. How many times have you seen financial people unable to manage a project? I have to say this, I used to be a financial person, and people used to say to me, you look like a financial person, because their interpretation of a financial person was somebody who didn't understand people. Well, as we go into this, the Chartered Management Consultant Award, you'll see just how important understanding people is, which I'm sure you already know. But yesterday, just for example, I was mentoring, because I mentor students just voluntarily who are interested in consulting. And she's been trying to get into PwC and Ernst & Young and doing the online courses, the online assessments, sorry, not online courses. And she's done extremely well, but she fails in leadership, and she can't understand why that's important. But as soon as I explained it to her and I said, well, can you imagine, you've gone in there, you've diagnosed the problem. Now you've got to keep everybody on track. Now you've got to influence people who don't want this to happen, but it's going to happen. You've got to get people on side. How do you do that if you're a poor leader? And it hadn't occurred to her, probably because leadership and management has been sort of flaked. In my view, as soon as I hear it, I switch off, because I know it's going to be something flaky about loving your staff and, holidays, or because it's been hijacked. But if you use leadership and associate it with influence, well, we're talking about influencers a lot, aren't we, with YouTube and social media? That's only leadership. So I don't know if you feel the same way. I can't see your faces. This is a great shame, because if I could see your faces, I would know if you agree with me or you don't agree with me. So I'm just going to say, this is how the majority of people I know who are sort of grown up, experienced people see leadership management. They see it as a bit flaky. But actually, it's influence. It's negotiation. Everything is about influence and negotiation. Otherwise, you could have the best invention in the world. It goes nowhere. If you can't convince anybody that it's worth having, forget it. So there is a symbiosis there. Let's move on. So the Chartered Management Consultant Award is a joint partnership, I think it's the best way of putting it, with the MCA. Sorry, another acronym. The MCA is the Management Consultant Association. And that's a trade association, not a professional association. So the trade association is made up of companies. A professional association, I hope that's not patronizing, is made up of individuals. So CMI are the individuals and the MCA are the professionals, and it's made up of the top 40 companies in England, the big ones, Accenture, PwC, Ernst & Young, all of those people. So when CMI got together with them, they said, let's have a charter. CMI really needed the MCA to be on board with it, because that was going to be the embedded standard. If those big companies would buy into it and participate in developing it, that would make it the leader, which they did. So the purpose, of course, was to create a professional recognition of a consistent high standard of achievement. It was aligned to a competency framework, which I'll show you. It says here self-reflective. By the way, this isn't my slide. That's why it looks a bit different. This is actually an CMI slide. It is about self-reflectment, because in order to fill the application, it's quite a document. You're called upon to think about yourself and give examples of your own success. And it all has to be countersigned by somebody else, so you can't make it up. I'm an assessor, and I have seen only one that was clearly not true. And I didn't even meet him. And apparently I'm the only assessor who's ever done that. I didn't even give him a chance of the professional discussion, because it was so obviously not true. Cabinet Office representatives sit on the Chartered Oversight Board. So it's certainly gaining traction. It's only, it's about 3 years old now, but obviously 2 of those years have been kind of in no man's land due to lockdown. So I think I was chartered in 2019, I think 2019. So I've assessed about 20 management consultants from IBM, Ernst & Young, PwC, and it's building. Now, here is the competency framework, which when you first look at it, you think, oh, why do they make these things so fancy? But actually, there is some sense in this rondel. So I'm going to just momentarily take it apart. And this actually is something I really do believe in, and I've kind of referred to it already earlier in the presentation. Right at the center of this is values, ethics, and behaviors. And that forms a very big part of how we assess a chartered management consultant. Without values and ethics, we get collapsed projects, we get a bad reputation, and people don't ask you back. So in the application process, there are many statements on values, ethics, and behaviors. It's quite a difficult thing to assess. And when I was asked the question during my professional discussion, I really struggled with it, because, when something's so deeply and woven into what you do, it is really hard to extract that one thread and say, oh, yes, I did that, and it was ethical. So you might start thinking, if you're ever thinking about doing this, start thinking now about that, because I thought that was the hardest question or the hardest element of this to demonstrate. Because it's like saying, demonstrate how you breathe in and out. Well, I breathe in and out, that's what I do. Demonstrate it well. So that's how I felt about it. But I absolutely believe it's one of the most important things. Around that is leadership management, for the reasons I've given you, which I hope you share. There is no point in going into an organization and diagnosing a problem if you can't talk to people at different levels. And this is actually a problem I see when I'm assessing people. They don't really know how to switch from talking to the board then to talking to somebody who is doing something very low level. And you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to get everybody on side to make it work. and leave your personality outside. You've got to be very analytical. Judge what you see. Don't lose your temper. Be calm. All of these things make a project work. Then we have the client. Can I point at this? Can you see my cursor? Yeah. So this screen here, client operating environment. 5 components, and this is probably where most consultants expect to put most of their energy when they're demonstrating their abilities. And it's around the operation, it's around the sector, it's around analysis. What's that 5th one there? Stakeholder relationship. You probably wouldn't think to include that, but for the greater part, that is the meat of analysing the problem, having trends up your sleeve, ready to know where something may develop to in the future, but also stakeholder management. That's kind of where the leadership comes in. But also stakeholder management can be government bodies. It could be associations. That's quite a big chunk. And again, all of it is wrapped up in professional and personal development. I'll give you an example. When I built a business in the 90s, and I built it for 8 years, and that took me kind of away from technology. Technology was running in the background, but it's quite different when you're running a business that only relies on technology, as in one or 2 or 3 computers. It's not how things were for me before that in the corporate world, and nor since. So I was aware that the internet was becoming a massive revolution. I could see all businesses were going to be heavily impacted by that. And I called a management consultant in to discuss it with me so I could understand the impact. And he didn't even know how to send emails. He knew nothing about the internet. And I think that's an excellent example of what a management consultant must not be. They must see what's coming and be sufficiently prepared and aware of whatever it is. And I'm not talking about just one thing in technology. I'm talking about changes in the law, change in tax, how people work independently. And now we have how people are working in a fragmented kind of way. Do we allow people to only work from home? Do we not? What is the consequence? Does it work better for some sectors, not other sectors? You may have your own opinion, but properly, you would have other opinions. And something I personally look at a lot is the McKinsey website, because it covers all the things that I think matter to a business. It covers financials, it covers technological advancements, it covers people. It doesn't spend all its time on D&I, which is really what I see too much of. And I have to say this, diversity inclusion is, in my view, overwhelming other insight, and it focuses only on gender and sex, which I think is crazy. If when I'm as an assessor and I'm assessing management consultants, and D&I actually is part of it, it falls within ethics and behaviours. Somebody said to me, and it was a young man, he was a white young man, and he said to me, I make sure my teams are not made up from just white men like me. And I said, are you telling me all white men are the same? That's just not true. So you do need to have a brain that's ready to respond appropriately and analytically to get through this process. Otherwise, it's not just me who would have said, is that what you're saying to me? Other consultants, assessors would have said that too. So professional and personal development is very important. Now, for this reason, I think it's very nearly impossible to go through this process cold. Let me see, I can't remember what the next slide is. Oh, we've had that conversation, so I don't need to do that. This is how you get there. So there are 3 at this point, at that point. These slides may have changed slightly. because when I received these slides 2 years ago, the charter was in its pilot mode. So it's important for me to say that at this point, I think this is accurate. It's broadly accurate because there is still an on-program way to get through. There is the experienced professional, and the qualification is kind of there, but I think that's going to be replaced by a third way, and I can't say what that is because it hasn't been publicized. But fundamentally, it's the first two that are most important. I see the majority coming through as experienced professionals, and those are people who've got 7 years experience as a practicing management consultant, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have. There are programs that CMI have approved in-house, and that's where the big companies come in, the CMI, the Ernst & Youngs and so on. They have their own programs which have been aligned with the charter. And so their graduates are on program and they can start submitting papers and so on. And after 5 years, they follow through. But I think the most interesting one is the experienced professional, because I think an awful lot of people fall into that category. But I just don't know that you could pick up the document and really know how to get the most out of that document. For all the reasons I've given you, I think if I just presented you with that rondel, I'm not sure that you would have thought to include a lot of what I've brought out of it. So we're kind of really at the end of the presentation, and I would ask you, what now? What is it? What reason did you come on to this presentation? What was it you wanted to achieve? Did you want to do a course? Did you want the accreditation? Do you want to start a practice? Do you want to grow your practice? Develop your career? Whatever it is you're doing, don't stand still because nothing else does. As we've seen in the last 2 years, the last 2 years, probably in my lifetime, have been the fastest 2 years of development. So Consultants Know-How, I refer to that group again, on LinkedIn, connect up with that, connect up with me, and we will address all of those things that are there. And I can see from your own program, you're already looking at some of these things, growing your business, starting out in consulting. But I think it'd be really exciting from a business development perspective, as well as everything else, if we could bring consultants with different disciplines together, and not least to recommend each other. So in the chat, could I ask you to tell me what it is, what was the reason you wanted to come and listen to this, listen to me talking to you? Could you do that? I guess it's not because you've nothing else to do.
Okay, good answer from Nick there. He's interested in professional standards for management consulting as much of his consulting work is about applying standards, and he sees this as a good thing.
Perfect. Yes.
Federica says, understanding the portfolio of accreditation certifications available. Yes, absolutely. And Kawa Hamid says, to understand and pursue a structured pathway to professionalization. Sheila wants to start a practice, so that's an interesting one. I think, Sheila, if you want to talk to us about that, that'd be great. Alan says, professionalizing consulting industry. James Cooper says, at the beginning of my IT consultancy career, so interested in the structure and governance of the profession. Joe Woodhouse says that Joe is a senior IT consultant starting to be headhunted for executive roles. That sounds good. Looking for anything that helps bridge the gap from IT to senior management, and interested therefore both in CM and CHM. Those are a lot of, I see a lot of enthusiasm for this, Zarina.
Fantastic. That is wonderful. That's really exciting that you all came with that ambition, and I hope I've given you what you needed. But if I can be of any further help, you, as I said, contact me. I'm very happy to engage with you any way you need. Do you have any? Are there any questions? I think that's pretty much it. That's it again.
Federica wants to know what's the best website to find out more about the awards and the certifications.
It's look, if you Google Chartered Management Institute, it'll come up. I think it's called. I think the website, strangely, it's called managers.co.uk or managers.org. But if you Google Chartered Management Institute, you'll end up on the right place.
Mm. And the Certified Management Consultant Award was through the Institute of Consulting in a form of, back in the days it was the Institute of Management Consulting.
Yeah, you won't find that on the website because they don't on the Chartered Management Institute's website. You will only find the Chartered Management Consultant, you'll find Chartered Manager. You won't see the ISO or CMC or the CMC. They really don't promote that enough. It's not even on their website. We keep telling them to put it on their website.
Yeah. And Antonio has just put the web link for managers.org.uk into the chat for anyone who's looking for that.
If you want to know about the other two things, just contact me and I'll tell you, because I know somebody who runs the courses, and he'll happily engage with you.
Federica's got a question about what the best form of certification is if you are working internationally across the UK and the USA, and I might add from that point of view any other country. Are some of these more international than others?
The ISO is an international standard, but it's an accreditation. The CMC is also international. But, you know, there's nothing quite like having a British charter, is there? But that's a very different journey. That's a you know, how many years experience does he have, Federico?
7. 7. Exactly right.
There we go. I mean, what other accreditations does Federico have? Is he a chartered IT?
He says yes. So.
Well, 2 charters sounds good to me. But if nothing else, you're already a chartered. What is your qualification called? I'm sorry. What is it? Chartered project? No.
Chartered IT professional, CITP. So,
Thank you. Chartered professional. If you're already chartered, maybe you should just do the ISO, because that is the management consulting framework. That gives you the commercial side of to add to your technical piece. And that's quick, it's a day. But you might want to consider the chartered consultant as well.
Hi everyone. I'm just it's just something I've been thinking of. I don't know how to start, but I think this presentation has really inspired me, and I think I would link with the speaker very soon so that I can get guidance. So in a nutshell, that's my dream, but really I don't know where to start. And that's the reason why I came to this webinar.
So, Zarina, how much sort of supporting information can people actually find available publicly through these various websites without having to buy books or pay subscription fees or something? Is most of this actually in the public domain anyway, or do you need to be in the right association or buy the right book or whatever?
To take the accreditations and the awards, it's all there. Well, no, that's not true. The ISO is on the ICMCI website. That's the international one in Austria. The charter will be on CMI's managers.org.uk. Starting a business won't be on any of them, and growing a business won't be on any of them. And really, when you think about it, when you're setting up a practice, a management consulting practice, you're setting up a business. That is business information, and that's what's missing. Hence, we want to plug that gap. And some of the members on the committee have put together something for starting your own practice or growing your own practice.
Mm-hmm. So James Cooper wants to know how to find a qualified trainer who's able to deliver the ISO one-day course.
That's me.
Yes, I thought you'd say that. But it's true.
There are also a couple of others who I know who are IC members. So if you contact me, we can sort that out. Or no, let's be completely impartial. You can look on the ICMCI website. There will be a register there of people who are certified to do this as well. So if you want to bypass all of us and go straight there and make an independent selection. In the UK, though, there's only 4 or 5 of us, so it'll be somebody I know. But don't let me put. I shouldn't have said that. That's the independent way to do it. Go to the ICMCI website.
Okay, James has given you a huge smiley face.
I have a question. Okay. I'm very interested to know who they are. So. If you're self-employed, if you're an independent consultant, that'd be good. If you're an employed consultant, if you're running a business, that would be really good. If you're whichever one you fall into, it'd be really interesting for me to know how that all breaks down.
Yeah. Okay, everybody in chat, just a one-word answer. I won't read out your names. I'll just read out what you type. What type of consultant are you? Independent, employed. Independent. Employed. It's running even at the moment.
I'm keeping track.
Nick has a one-man company. Independent. Employed. Feels it fairly evenly balanced there.
That's really interesting.
One observation I always make about ISO 2700 myself is it is extremely good that all consultants are up to that level. As someone who used to be in charge of quality and risk management for one of the big 6 firms, I can tell you that when you get up to that level, the complexity of what you're expected to know in terms of how to do things, procedures, the right things, what you can do, what you can't do, is like 2 orders of magnitude more complicated than ISO 2700. Our standard global manual was 453 pages long. And it was my team's job to make sure everybody was following the manual. So ISO 2700 sounds great to me unless you're working for a huge firm, it's just what you need.
That was my view when I first saw it, because until ISO 2700, I saw nothing. There was nothing, no agreed standards. So I remember when I started as a management consultant, I sold my business and didn't know what I was going to do next. Then somebody said to me, you underestimate what you know. And I thought, he's right. I do underestimate it. So straight away I went into a technology company, and it was in it was 2001 when the internet's infrastructure was still being built, and they were creating appearing points and exchange points and private networks. And so I went into one of those, and they were turning over millions and millions of pounds, but they had no idea what they were doing from a business perspective. And they wanted to scale up, they wanted to go public, they wanted to do all sorts of things, had no idea. So they brought me in because I'd scaled my own business up. But then I realized I was kind of not making it up. I wasn't making it up because I knew how to do it, but it was very difficult having a framework to follow. It was only common sense. And when you just apply common sense, you think, have I missed anything? What are the things I really should be thinking about? But because I've been in finance before that, I've been a financial director of massive, massive American companies. I naturally thought about risk and project delivery, and I'd hired management consultants and big tax consultants. So I had a start. But if I'd just been, say, IT, I think that's quite frightening. That's quite scary, going into an organization cold with just great IT skills and no framework or business structure to go with it. So the ISO, I mean, when I first saw that, I thought, thank goodness for that. That's going to be a relief to an awful lot of non-financial consultants who don't think about commercial risk, or don't think about risk, or as in the thing doesn't work, or it fails, the IT project fails, or the program's got holes in it, or something like that. But they won't think about what happens if we overrun and it's not in the contract. And I've just paid this person here £10,000 to work on my behalf, but it's not in the main contract with the client. I'm at risk now to £10,000. You know, I saw some terrible things. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Simon. The 2700 covers all of that off, and I think and that's why I focused on stress. I wasn't being flaky and 21st century. The stress of running a project when you feel it's not being controlled properly is something I think we should all aim to remove. And a framework does that, as does the chartered framework. Just having that rondelle, I think, to look at makes you realize what you should be doing yourself, even if you're not a chartered management consultant, even if you don't do it. That ethics and values in the middle of it all, you know, finally with professional development on the outside, all wrapped up, it's all working together, it's a matrix. That is a management consultant, not somebody who's an expert in one thing.
I see there's a fresh question from Nick there, which is it yet important to employers in any particular sector or geography that you are accredited or certified as a management consultant? And how do you see the value becoming recognised? So is our marketplace sufficiently well educated that they know to ask for people who are chartered or certified, or do they just check how cheap you are?
You know, that is a brilliant question. You've gone right in there, Nick, like a surgeon. That is exactly right. So in my view, the marketplace isn't properly educated. And, you know, when you're in business, you're doing something new, educating your audience is crucial. Having said that, with the top companies embedding it in their systems, that will set the standard itself. It's slower than I would do it. If it was my award, I wouldn't do it like that. I would have had all the financial press involved way before it was launched. But even so, we've got the big companies doing it. So once they start sending their people out saying, oh, you know, our differentiator is our consultants are chartered, that will create the appetite and demand in the market for it. And that's also why I want, you see, I'm really evangelistic about this. I go on about it, but I want the Institute of Purchasing to also be familiar with it, and for their people to demand it. The Cabinet, I don't know if this is confidential, but certainly the Cabinet Office is on the oversight board, the Chartered Oversight Board. So they are buying into it quite heavily. They are on the oversight board. So it will be at some point that the public sector will demand it. And the other thing is territories. Certainly Austria and China, you have to be qualified. But as for everybody else and the cheap bit, that's so important. When anybody says to you, oh, look, I can get him over there or her over there, she's cheaper, he or she's cheaper, you'll say, but where's your quality assurance? I can prove I will deliver on time value in an orderly way, and you won't get a sudden demand for an invoice that you haven't signed up for, because I've been through this process and it's provable through this register in Austria. I can prove it. So, I mean, you won't use all those words, of course not. You'll infer it, but it's there. It'll be underscoring everything you do, because this quality mark you get, you're allowed to put on all your stationery and on your website and on your business cards, if anybody ever uses a business card now. It's there as a quality mark, and it's also on the document as a seal. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but you know, people like it. Clients like it because they're afraid. Ask most people in business what they think of consultants, and they will say they're scared to death because these things are out of control, because they always go wrong, because they haven't been scoped in the first place correctly. And then we get a bad reputation.
There's a fresh question in from Joe, which is there much overlap between chartered management consultants and the worshipful company of management consultants?
I didn't mention them.
they are a very different concept, actually, but Zarina, you can answer the question.
Well, if you join the worshipful company, you have to show your needs. I'm joking. They're like a livery organisation, and they are about doing charitable works and networking, and they belong to a very old English concept of fellowship and sharing, which has nothing at all to do with the Chartered Management Consultant Award. That is a business commercial accreditation. It's an award for being a professional management consultant. They're not anything like each other. So you can join the worshipful company, you just join them. That's it. You don't need any accreditations to do that, and network with them and do charitable work with them. This is different.
I'm not sure if I remember the name correctly, but they also have the opportunity to join the worshipful company of information technologists.
That's also true, which is not the same as you guys. It's as different as you guys.
Although the BCS is a charity. The one thing I'd add to some of the conversation about how to do stuff, how to run a business, how to start a business, how to do quality, etc. Of course, a very good free source for that is to come to our future events that I was highlighting earlier, and as well as the future events, there's actually a very good collection of videos on YouTube. So if you find the BCS's area on YouTube, and in particular look for the playlist, which is the Consulting Specialist Group's playlist of videos, you'll find no end of talks like this one covering all sorts of different topics which are relevant to being a consultant. How to do the job, how to build business, how to work with people, how to manage things, etc., etc. Yes, sorry, go on.
I've thought of that has kind of comes up because I mentor these students who want to be consultants, and I hadn't really thought about it until I was faced with these young people who want to do consulting, and I really make them think about is, why do they want to do it? Because not everybody is, and I've had them reverse their thinking once they've understood what a consultant is, and then employed consultants, independent consultants, they don't really consider that. Not everybody has the right mentality to run a business, because when you're setting up a business, you have to be the technician, the salesperson, the accountant, the risk analyst. You've got to be so many people. Some people really just want to go to work and do pretty much the same kind of thing one day after the next. But if you're working for one of the big companies, you may be sent at a moment's notice anywhere in the world for as long as that company sees fit. And these elements are actually very important and often get neglected. Who you are and what makes you comfortable. And don't let money drive you. Money, the average consultant, I'm sure, at PwC is on 100 grand, 150 grand easily. But you sell your soul. And I know there are members of your committee who have worked for those big organisations. What would you say?
I thoroughly endorse those organisations as places to work until you're burnt out, and then move out to being an expert consultant in your own right. So the training and the opportunities you get if you go through the big firms are incredible, and You can walk through doors that you wouldn't stand a chance of going through if you were an individual consultant working as a sole trader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what the key phrase there was burnt out.
Yes.
And that's what I see so much of. People who work for those companies are burnt out and they look old before their time. And I know you're only 25, Simon.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a very good example of a burnt out management consultant. Quite right. I thoroughly admit it.
It is important to think about this. And was it Sheila who said she wanted to start her own firm?
Yeah.
Was it Sheila?
Yes.
She really needs to consider her own personality and how she lives her own life, because it's really tough to start off with. And, you know, I say it was tough. I built a business and sold it. Before that, I was seriously important financial jobs. So I had an awful lot going for me before I did it. So I mean, I flogged myself to death running my other company. And, you know, I built it with people and vehicles and, you know, it was a serious concern. So I could do this. So I would consider. It's very exciting. I would never do anything else, by the way. And all the sacrifices you make to do it are worth it. But it's not, you know, on television you see people saying, "Oh, I'm just going to set up my own company. I'm fed up with this. I don't want to be your skivvy anymore. I'm gonna make a lot of money." And they sign a piece of paper, and suddenly they've got a big car and a big house, and you know, that's rubbish. That's just not how it is. It's the complete opposite of that. So don't, and I don't want to be patronizing, I really don't, but it really annoys me when I see this public perception of running a business. It's tough. Very, very worthwhile, but it's tough. Sheila.
There's another one from Nick. Let me just read it. I think the core skills necessary to be a consultant are the curiosity to understand complex dilemmas, to communicate the solution in simple terms, and the energy to implement a successful outcome. Well, we can't disagree with that, Nick. Even those of us who are a little bit burnt out when it comes to the necessary energy.
Nick, I'd hire you. You've nailed it.
Let's call it stay there. Zarina, any last things you wanted to say to everyone before we finish?
No, not at all. Not to everyone. No, thank you all though for participating like that. That was really great. I really appreciate that, because sitting here, I'm just talking to a green dot on my screen. I can't see anybody. I'm getting no feedback. So it's important. Thank you.
Okay, I think everybody should be applauding now, because it has been a great session, and indeed the thanks are rolling in on the chat. So thank you very much. I thought a great session, and I hope everybody really appreciated the wisdom that we were able to impart in this session. Don't forget to sign up for future sessions, everybody. All of our sessions are free and open to non-members. But of course, if you really want to get the best benefit out of it all, join the BCS if you're not already a member. And we're a great bunch of people. We can do some wonderful things together. Having said that, it must be time to say goodnight. So thank you very much for coming, and see you next time, everybody. You may turn off your Zoom. Goodbye.